Let's face it, sitting around and waiting for your turn is a real problem in 5th edition, Tales of the Valiant, and other tabletop RPGs. But there is a real simple fix for that, a rule change that I introduced for my groups a while ago, and now I cannot play without it. It almost completely defeats the sitting around waiting for your turn part of the game. It makes the combat much more efficient, much more realistic, and it just generally increases the flow of your combat a ton. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Tarask and I'm not really sure if a white shirt actually works on camera, but I'm rolling with it because I'm too lazy to go put on another shirt. Today I want to talk about a rule change that I made in my 5th edition and Tales of the Valiant games. Now I personally took this rule from the Cipher system, but the rule is probably already like 1,000 years old, and I don't know who or what RPG introduced it, but I'm using it because I got to know it from playing the Cipher system. And I personally call it the Everybody Acts at the Same Time initiative system, which is a really good name for it because that's basically what's happening. Now, I talked about this in my previous video yesterday, just for a little bit, but I wanted to make a separate video about this, just off the cuff, unscripted thing, where I introduce you to this rule if you're playing 5th edition or any of those games, and you want initiative to go a little bit faster, you want stuff to be a little bit more, I don't know, it feels more like it flows more, and it also just feels more realistic, but also people don't have to sit and wait, and people don't have to sit around and wait for their turn for ages because there's this one person at the table who has like 16 actions and 15 bonus actions and all that stuff going on for some particular reason because they min-max the living crap out of their character, right? So what I do is very, very simple, and some of you are probably going to laugh at this and be like, oh, Mr. T finally found out that you can do that, and I've been doing that for 20 years, but I haven't. I've been using the turn-based system from 5th edition always, and like starting from late tier 1, early tier 2, it just becomes a real problem of people getting bored and then they go on their cell phone and that kind of stuff. So what I do is really simple. It is when a combat starts, and I'm going to give a very simple example right now, against a Hydra. So there is this Hydra, which is always in one of my campaigns. There's always Hydras, right? So there is this Hydra, the characters show up. There's 4 of them. 4 characters show up in front of a Hydra, right? I roll an initiative check for the Hydra. I might roll an initiative check for the Hydra. I might also just come up with a number. That is the DC that people need to beat or not beat, basically. So let's say it has a +5 on its dex and I roll a 10. That's a 15. People who roll a 15 or higher get to act before the Hydra. People who roll a 14 or lower get to act after the Hydra. They're slower. So people who roll higher are faster than the Hydra. People who roll lower are slower. Lower is slower than the Hydra. Simple as that. Now, there's nothing really different about that because that's kind of how it's always been done. But then I group those people together. Let's say 2 people, just for simplicity here, 2 people beat the DC. They get to act together. 2 of them get to act together. Then the Hydra and then the 2 other people get to act together. After those 2 other people, it's these 2 people's turn again, the Hydra, like that, right? And what I mean by acting together is I don't point at one person and be like, it's your turn. No, I point at both of them like, it's your turn, the both of you. You can both spend an action and both spend a bonus action or whatever you want to do. You can both do your turn simultaneously or talk to each other or be like, hey man, if you just allow me to move there, then you can cast that spell, and as a reaction to that I can cast this spell, or I can do this and you can do that. And this makes combat so much more fun. I know it's really stupid and really simple, but it makes combat much more fun, because now if it's somebody's turn, it's almost always also somebody else's turn. So they're kind of like being like, oh, if you do this, then I can do this. And it is oftentimes when somebody roll lower on their initiative as one of their friends, they want to do stuff, but they need another player to do a certain kind of thing. But then the initiative needs to work out. But when they're acting together, they can kind of choose, if you do that action and then I do that action, we can work together for that. And in a Cypher system, that's a basic rule. In a Cypher system, every combat encounter has a DC. If you make the DC, basically you get to act in front of the monster, and it works really well. Like the first session, when you tell your players that, they're like, wait, what, whose turn is it? It's our turn, what do we do? Who acts first? And they're like a little bit awkward about it, but like, I don't know, 3-4 rounds into the game, people don't want to play anything else. Now, it can of course sometimes happen that like there's 3 people who roll higher and they all get to act together, and then there's the Hydra, and then there's this one lonely person. That's up to you as a game master to then just play out the slowness of that character and just laugh that off and be like, the entire party is fighting the Hydra does its thing, and then the other person comes walking up, and you just play that out as kind of a joking thing, because next time they will probably act together with another person, right? Another thing you can do with this is you can, of course, if you have a Hydra and say 5 orcs that are working together, like my encounter from the Quintessential Guide to Monster Encounters called Orcs on a Hydra, you can buy that, link in the description below. You can roll for the orcs and for the Hydra, and you put like the orcs at 10 and the Hydra at 15 or whatever, I don't know, and then you group players in between that, right? If the Orc and the Hydra end up in between the 2 party of players, there's no players in between the Orcs and the Hydra, the Orc and the Hydra are all also grouped together. They're not separate turns, they're also grouped together. I know this sounds really stupid. I know this sounds really simple, but people who are still using the really turn-based kind of style of system of 5th edition, Tales of the Valiant, and other games that use that, please, for the love of God, give it a chance. One combat encounter, give it a chance. Tell your players what you're trying to do. It is the best rule change. There's not a lot of rule changes that I do, and I've been playing like strictly rules as written almost for a while. But this one, I'm not getting back to the turn-based kind of thing. That's just not what I want to do. And because, yeah, this flows. First of all, it flows. People are working together. There's like sitting around waiting for your turn it's cut in half, basically. That's the thing about it, right? So, yeah, try it out. I just want you to try it out. I wanted you to know because I'm excited about it, and I want to know if you've already been doing it. I want to know if you're gonna try it, and if you tried it, I want to know, comment below if you liked it or not. Now, another quick way to further streamline combat for me is something that I use is a combat encounter DC. It is also from the Cypher system, where instead of like me rolling for initiative and rolling against almost anything that players are doing, I don't know, they try to seduce the freaking Hydra, or they try to climb over something or on top of the Hydra or that kind of stuff. You need to come up with like a DC for all that stuff, or you need to roll like against, like for a seduce check, you need to maybe roll a wisdom check against that, or stuff like that, right? To not have to do that as an encounter DC. Basically, I just set an encounter DC, let's say 15, that's it. 15 is my encounter DC. It is the initiative DC, it is climbing on top of the Hydra DC, it is trying to do other stuff, it is all within reason, of course. There's always like special stuff that needs a higher or maybe a lower DC. You're the GM, do whatever you want, but for me, having that number in my mind, that's the encounter DC, really helps further streamline the combat. It's just like roll initiative, and I now even go as far as to say, roll initiative, the number to beat is 10. That's what I do. I don't keep it a secret. I'm just like, the number to beat is 10. And they're like, oh, 10, I can do that. And they roll and they beat 10. And then I just ask everybody, who has 10 or higher? And they just point up their finger and I'm like, okay, you and you act together. You act separately after the Hydra. Bam. And you start playing. And everything that happens out of the ordinary in the game, in the encounter, is also a 15, unless it's like really needs a lower or higher thing. But if it's just like a thing, it also has a 15. So this is just like loose tips off the cuff, unscripted stuff that I wanted to put out there in the world. I'm probably the 100 millionth person to talk about this, but I just wanted to talk about it. Until next video, bye bye.